Welcome back to another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio. My guests today are Maria Armstrong and Tangee Allen, co-founders of Raising Expectations, Inc., a mentoring and tutoring program for inner city kids. We talked a little bit about how during COVID and Black Lives Matter, this organization actually thrived while a lot of organizations did not do so. What makes them different, why this is a fabulous opportunity to support and a fabulous opportunity to invest in kids. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm Craig DiVizzio, president of DiVizzio International, and I've got two guests today. They are the co-founders of Raising Expectations, Inc., and their names are Maria Armstrong and Tangee Allen. Let me tell you a little bit about Raising Expectations. That organization was born a long time ago, 25, 26 years ago. They've been doing this a long time. They're professionals. When they were both students at Georgia State University, and they had a conversation about the African American community and its struggles, they decided to start volunteering and tutoring students from low wealth communities. They picked the children up, took them to the local library to read, work on math problems, and mentored them in essentially whatever topic the kids needed. That number of children grew, and all of a sudden it became perfectly apparent to them they couldn't just abandon these kids and their families because they were reliant on the mentorship and the tutoring being offered. That was 25 or 26 years ago. And now let's bring you up to current time. Their goals of the organization are helping children understand that with hard work, they could attend college and pursue dreams that reach beyond what was familiar with them. They serve youth in the Atlanta communities that include Decatur, Eastlake, Pittsburgh, Vine City, English Avenue, Washington Park, and the west side of Atlanta. Let me tell you about Tangee. She worked for the local government for 9 years. She was the program manager in the mayor's office for the community-based Department of Weed and Seed, a multi-agency approach to law enforcement, crime prevention, and community revitalization. She's been recognized by various organizations and received a host of awards from the City of Atlanta, Spelman College, Enterprise Foundation, Morehouse College, and the WB Channel 36 TV station in Atlanta. Maria started her career as a high school teacher, mentor, and administrator in a public charter school. She was runner-up for the MTV Brick Award. I don't know what that is, but it sounds pretty cool. She was featured in the inspirational book, As I Am. She was honored with a Sisters Who Serve Award from Spelman College. She got the Unsung Hero Award from WB, Channel 36 TV station in Atlanta, and the Unsung Heroine Award from the Atlanta chapter of National Coalition of 100 Black Women. Ladies, it is a pleasure to see you again. It's been too long.
I know, too long.
Agreed.
Too
Agreed.
long.
It has been too long.
In all transparency, I've known these ladies for, gosh, got to be 26 years.
Yes.
26 years, something like that, and gladfully served on their board of directors for over 15 years. They are good personal friends of mine. I can't wait to catch up with them and see how Raising Expectations has changed over the years. So let's kind of start with that, and I'm going to leave it to either one of you. Tell us a little bit about how you got started and then how things have changed up to current day.
Yeah, so I guess I'll get started. So for us, you remember Craig, when you were on the board of directors, when we started raising expectations, this was purely born out of volunteer efforts, right? There was supposed to be a sunrise and a sunset, and the sun was going to set when we graduated from college. That didn't
Okay.
happen.
Little did we know.
Yes, little did we know. And to the point of our introduction, what we found is that we had a relationship, a longitudinal relationship with our children, the families that we serve, and the communities that we serve. And that has held true over the now 26 years of service to the City of Atlanta's youth. So there have been so many wonderful things who have changed. One, in terms of our just a career pathing, that's changed tremendously. Secondly, in terms of the parts of the City of Atlanta that we're supporting. So currently we're on the west side of Atlanta, and we're also supporting the southwest south of Atlanta as well. That has changed. In addition, we have grown tremendously in terms of the number of children that we're serving, the partnerships that we've been able to garner, the relationships we have with the foundation community as well as individuals. Our board has grown. We have grown as individuals and professionals in this sphere. So now this space rather, so now we have a wealth of information to share with those that are looking to start their own personal nonprofits. So a lot of things have changed. I don't know if you have any additional things you want to add to that.
No, I think you covered that well.
Yeah, was it a difficult or an easy decision to make to let go of your careers, at least the ones that you had planned, to say, we're going to put all our eggs in this basket? I know there's a passion there, because I'll tell a little bit more about that. That's how I got hooked up with you in the first place. But was that an easy decision or a difficult decision to?
Well, I think at the time it felt like an easy decision to make. But then when you look back retrospectively and you think, okay, was that the right decision? I think along the way we thought maybe we made the wrong decision, because it was a lot harder to do this than we originally envisioned. And so we thought, because we were doing good work with young people in the community, that it would just be easy, and that people would just say, oh, absolutely, we're going to fund you and support this initiative because you're doing good work and you're making impacts. And along the way we learned that it takes more than that. It takes more than just good impact. It takes having a good business model. It takes having the right board. It takes making sure that you have great infrastructure, that you're fundraising. I mean, it's running an entire business. I mean, even though it's nonprofit, you're essentially running a business.
Talk a little bit more about the difference between being in leadership and running an organization as a nonprofit versus running an organization that's for profit, because that is a completely different animal.
Yes, yes.
And I know that may be something also that going into it, it's like, as you were talking, Maria, I was thinking, yeah, that whole getting the funding thing, we thought was going to be maybe a little bit easier than it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
So we've learned over the 26 years that you literally eat what you kill, right? So you're not only having to garner relationships with the foundation, individual donor community, but you also have to, and rightfully so, garner relationships and rapport with the communities and the children you serve. So you have to work over years to earn that. And so what we're proud to say is that because we've been place-based in our efforts, and it wasn't a scattered approach, it was with intentionality, and because we really believe in the efficacy of our thought process and our theory of change, that we've been as successful as we've been able to garner over the years. So it's completely different. When you're a for-profit, you're building widgets, right? If I sell whatever the widget is, clothing or a thing or a service, then people will pay for that particular thing. But it's different when you're in a nonprofit community, because you have to get people to believe in your vision, not only the vision just from the 30,000 foot perspective, but how you actualize your vision. They have to buy into it. And then you as an individual and your team. So those layers of things that are equally as important when it comes to garnering resources, revenue to support your work and your vision are equally as important. And so they're all built on relationships. Everything is built on relationships.
I can remember back to when there were two people doing everything.
Yes.
and now it appears that your organization has grown. You've been able to hire people and everything. Talk a little bit about that, about how exciting it was to finally be able to put more of your time into things like, I'm imagining the relationship building is what you're doing more of now, where some of the things that you used to do, you've now given away to other people.
Yeah, well, as two people that co-founded a business, I mean, it's a beautiful feeling to have staff members and team members that you can rely on to really shoulder the weight of running the programs. And so, today, we're many, many years removed from running the day-to-day affairs of the actual program, and we're now really focused more on that relationship building aspect and getting to know, building deeper relationships with our funders, cultivating new relationships that can yield funding or opportunities for our youth or families. And so being in that space has been great for us because, again, we're going deeper. It's almost like you're constantly learning when you're doing this work. I feel like we learned a lot, but every day we learn more about how to do this job well so that we can continue creating such an impact in the lives of our young people.
And you started out with how many kids, and where are you now? Because I know that is, to grow, you can't continue to do everything.
Right.
You've got to have other people so that you can grow the organization. Where you started out with, I don't know how many.
Yeah.
How many are you now?
Carlos.
Yeah.
So we can count our kids by Carlos. Only
Yeah,
because
Carlos, right. It's true.
Only
It's true.
because
Okay.
myself, Maria, and our
Five
friends.
Carlos
Oh yeah,
today.
that's about a good equivalent of about 4 or 5 kids. So
Well.
it was literally by Carlos, and you will remember, like, again, it was authentic. It was literally about making impact and change while we were in college. So it wasn't about numbers or meeting any KPIs or making certain that we are aligned with our mission and working with partners. It was just about doing good work.
Yeah.
It was really just about imparting change. It was really just about being that thoughtful person that was present enough to give to our kids and our communities and meeting them where they are and not being judgmental about it. So it's so authentic. So clearly that has changed. So now we're working with over 140 kids a year, but it's different. It's not an episodic touch points. We're talking about working with kids 4 days out of the week. We work with them twice in a month doing social discovery activities. And this is year over year. So it's not a scenario where kids age out with us. We're like a good gang. Once you're in, you want to stay. So it's worked well for us in that regard.
COVID has, in the last several years, impacted so many small businesses. I remember this was probably mid-year last year, and the number was over 400,000 small businesses have closed their doors permanently because of COVID. In preparation for talking to you today, I checked it recently, and CBS News says that there are 30 million small businesses in the U.S. and 9 million are at risk of closing this year because of this. And minority-owned small businesses, 8 in 10 are in poor financial conditions at risk. Talk a little bit about, if you would, how you've been able to not just survive, but I think you actually had some pretty good years the last couple of years.
Yeah. That's a great question. What I'll tell you is that the model of raising expectations and the way we go about doing our work with young people is rooted in relationship and grounded in community. So when the pandemic hit, we were completely prepared to be able to pivot right away because, calling parents and making home visits, that's something we were already doing. And so when the pandemic hit, we easily pivoted. Our team members immediately started talking to our families to figure out what is it that you needed. And we came up with 3 areas: food, obviously being a high priority, paying bills, rent and utilities. And then the other was technology and just making sure the students had devices, that they had good internet at home. And so our team immediately responded, and our families responded, and we continued working. So we shifted to a virtual environment. All of our staff started doing tutoring online with Google Chat. The students had different platforms. We didn't skip a beat. And so people asked us, why is that? When everyone else was missing that moment, it was because we had a relationship with the families, and we could pick up the phone and we can go to the homes with masks, and we were delivering food baskets and making sure rent and utilities were being paid and deepening our relationship. So in that moment when things were just crazy, we stood in the gap with our families to let them know we're here for you. And then that transitioned into when the new school year came, and we thought, okay, maybe, the COVID virus will leave. It did not. And so therefore we ended up creating a learning hub. And so our students actually came to us during the school day. And that couldn't have happened if we didn't have an amazing team, because when we sat down with our team, we said, hey, are you comfortable doing this? Because that means they're going to be here and there's a pandemic and, we're going to social distance, but will you be okay? And they all said, absolutely, we want to do this for our families. And so kudos to our team for being confident, comfortable enough to say, and committed enough to say, we're willing to stand in the gap in person now and work with the students all day long to make sure that they could be successful in school.
So many kids that, at least what I'm hearing, have really suffered in the last couple of years. The grades are going down, suicide is up, the depression is up. I mean, all those types. What do you? I'm expecting that you're seeing maybe a little bit less of that because of the way you touch them at different points than maybe the average kid who's just going back and forth to school or was forced to do all of their homework at home or whatever. Talk a little bit about that. Things maybe that are out of control with lots of kids, but you're not seeing a lot of it in your organization.
Yeah. To be fully transparent, it's important to note that before COVID hit, our kids were already demonstratively behind. And so COVID hit in a different way from us. So just to keep them engaged is in and of itself a feat. So when you're talking about young people who, yes, they had access to technology like on their phones, social media, but learning from a laptop is a completely different thing. And so consequently, while we were there, what we did was preclude them from dropping off an entire cliff. So we were there to catch them, make sure they had a softer land, and then we were able to communicate with the schools about here's what we were seeing firsthand when they're with us. So the same issues that you just spoke about are still very much alive and well. They're thriving. Basic skill sets that our kids had, like routines about, what time am I supposed to be at school? I'm supposed to have a book bag. I need to take notes. This is my book for the class. Those things were lost in over the year plus that they've been out of a traditional learning environment because the foundation wasn't solid on the onset. And so what we've been doing was trying to prevent collateral damage that can happen consequently as an effect of COVID, and ensuring that our families and our children understand that I'm going to get the real information and figuring out what's going on. I'm going to translate it in a way that you understand this is your point 1, your point 2, your point 3, and this is how we preclude you from being lost in terms of multiple years you're being retained and not being realizing the full potential of yourself, and also the mission of raising expectations, because we want to make certain that kids graduate on time with post-secondary plans that they can actualize. And so whether there is a COVID or not, what we cannot do is lose our kids or our families in the cloak of COVID. So there have been different challenges, and thankfully, because we have already invested in relationships, to Maria's point earlier, that fall wasn't like a just drop on the cement floor, but much rather significantly more gentler, and then we're able to kind of guide them in terms of getting their feet back under themselves.
You mentioned them actualizing, and I want to talk to you about that right after a short break. You've been watching Big in Biz with DiViz. I'm talking to Maria Armstrong and Tangee Allen, co-founders of Raising Expectation. We'll be back in 1 minute. The number one reason why most people are unsuccessful is that they hate doing the work. Man, I don't even want to think about getting prepared. For those of you who are really struggling with, I don't really want to do the work, I've done most of the work for you. I've made the process easier. All you got to do is pick up one piece of material and everything that you need is there. I guarantee it. I've got thousands of students from my classes who've been successful using this approach. I know it works. You need to up your game. You can do it, but you got to figure out what's the best way for me to do it. You know you need to start preparing now. Everything that I knew over 40 years is in my book and in my interviewing skills online course. Everybody's got a favorite learning style. All you got to do is watch it, read it, listen to it. See ya. And we're back. You've been watching Big in Biz with DiViz. My guests today are Maria Armstrong and Tangee Allen, co-founders of Raising Expectations. During the break, Maria, we were talking about the effect of COVID on emotional health and some other things. Talk a little bit more about the impact of those on your kids.
Yeah, young people across the country struggled during this time, in ways that, we're going to see the impact for a long time. And so our kids were exactly in that position. And because we had an external evaluation over the past year, our evaluator did focus groups, and she found that the kids were responding so positively to us opening our doors and allowing them to come in and come to school with us essentially every day. So it made a difference. They felt like they had a village. They felt like they had people to support them and love them. And, the results are in. They absolutely see it and appreciated it.
Yeah, it seems like that isolation really impacted them in more ways than just, I didn't really get the hands-on, help with doing my homework. It went way beyond that with lots of kids.
Yeah, even seeing their peers, right? So they hadn't seen their friends. And so even being around their peers, their mentors, our staff. So it really supported them emotionally during a time that was extremely difficult for most kids around the country.
Well, I'm glad that business has been as good for you as it is. Lots of things happened the last couple of years. In addition to COVID, we had Black Lives Matter, and there were a lot of discussions that were being had, and I gleaned from what you wrote that some of that worked to your advantage. Talk a little bit about that, would you?
Yeah, it for us, what was important, let's talk about from the foundation, the revenue side of the balance sheet. There was definitely a positive impact and really more of an appreciation and understanding that representation doesn't matter. And that sometimes, there needs to be a specific intentional invitation to organizations that are not necessarily part of the big box entities, but are more niched in their approach and the proximity to the communities and the issues that they're serving is closer. And so we're thankful that happened because it's definitely had a positive impact on us as organizationally on the revenue side of it. And just the degree of sensitivity to, how this can have an impact on us as a organization that's founded and ran by women of color. That appreciation is definitely something that we acknowledge. And then also given the demographic profile of the students and the families that we serve. So people understand that particularly for the cluster that we serve, that they were having challenges prior to COVID, that there must be an exponential impact on them as a consequence of it. So that's one of those unintentional benefits. It caused people enough time to pause, think, be reflective, and question their intent, how they fund, how they move, how they view things. So that's been helpful, for sure.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me the number of people who are sensitive to certain issues, and they see something on TV and they go, man, that's a great cause. But what is lacking is taking action. It's great for people to be sensitive and compassionate about what you're doing. It's another thing to say, hey, we need a little help here too. When you find people like that who are reaching out and go, man, you guys are doing great work, how do you get them to turn the corner and go, yeah, well, there's this costs. We can't do this for free.
So
going all the phone calls and taking the kids on the trips and taking them to school, all that. How do you turn the corner with some of those people? What's your 1 minute message or commercial to, hey, check us out. We got some good things going on. Let me tell you how we are different, because I really want to get into that. You talked a little bit about that in terms of proximity, but there's other ways that you're different too. So talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I will tackle that question from directly. What I would say is we change lives. Like, we're taking young people from communities that are significantly under-resourced, communities that have all of the, all the data and the statistics that most people would say, I would never want to live there. And we're convincing these children and these families that they can have a different life. Why and how? Because it's in them. It's intrinsically there. We're just helping to pull it out of them. And so we do that with a lot of programs, but we do that with some amazing staff, and people who really care. So that's what we do, and we take kids from 5th grade all the way to college, and then we make sure they graduate college, and then we make sure they get into a career pathway that they can economically change their family story. So that's really important to us. So we have kids now working at NCR, Amazon, Microsoft, making the type of money that they probably, at 7th and 8th grade would never have thought they could have done. So that's what we do. We're truly changing lives and generations behind that.
I've always loved the name Raising Expectations, and I didn't write it down, so I may not have this quote exactly, but it is that you believe that children will live up to or down to their expectation, and that you're wanting to raise their expectations, for what they can do.
Yes.
And do you see a connection of your message to I don't want to call it graduates, because you're saying you never leave them, but the people who've been successful, who've gone, let's say, have there not been some people that you picked up from the 5th grade and followed them all the way through to college?
Yeah, there's so many of them. Yeah. And actually, the beautiful thing about having a longitudinal model is the fact that none of our communication tools change, is that even when our kids have to move away so we no longer have a conversation because gentrification is real, or if they make a poor decision along the way, the good thing about it is they always come back home. Mm-hmm. And so for those kids, we're able to help them come up with a plan to meet them where they are and say, while you made a poor decision, that does not mean that it defines your destiny. That's one. For those who have followed the plan, we tell them all the time, just follow the play. We will give you if you execute the play as it's been designed, you're going to make a touchdown. Guarantee it. Right. So as long as they're following the play, and that's been evidenced by all the kids, to Maria's point, that have gotten some really, really nice career-changing opportunities with all these corporations, that this is how it works. And so when we talk about the city of Atlanta and how difficult it is for young people who are born in poverty to be able to be middle or middle-high income wage earners in the future, this is what we mean. Mm-hmm. So while it's inconvenient, and it definitely requires sacrifice from the founders, the staff, the board to do this work, if we are going to be committed to this notion of closing the income inequality gap in Atlanta, so all of us have an opportunity to thrive, it's what it requires. And so over time, those kids, to your point, that have been with us, that's exactly what they're doing. They're changing the trajectory for themselves as well as their families moving forward. As are the kids who made some side steps. Well, you could have been making an $80,000, $90,000 job had you followed the plan, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have a salary that will afford you to be able to stay in the city of Atlanta if that's your choice, or just live in a life of comfort. Which is what we try to make certain that they are. But
it starts with expectations, right?
For sure.
It absolutely starts there. And so, if there's a broader message we would love people to have is that they should expect more of our young people. It should not just be an assumption that because you come from a certain zip code that we shouldn't expect that you can perform better in school, or that you can't be, a person that goes out here and succeeds in life. And so that was.
And I know that because I've seen it in action, the accountability piece. It's like as you may have some parents listening to this podcast right now saying, man, I'd love to I'm in one of those areas that they serve. I'd love to get my kids in that program. There's some accountability also. It's like you can't just, dump your kids off and then they don't follow the plan or whatever, and they're still in the program. Talk a little bit about the message to somebody brand new that you absorb into the organization. What's that conversation like? Hey, let me tell you what we can do for you. Let me tell you what we expect. We talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we need either the child or the parent to be 100% in, right? And you can't always get 100% right, but if we find a child that wants to succeed and they find us on their own and they say, I want to join, and we can only get 20 or 30% from that kid, we'll take that as a starting place, right? If you have a parent that brings a child to us, we just need engagement, right? So it's not really 100%. We just need you to select and say, I'm here. When you call me, I'm going to respond, and we're going to together work to support your child with finding success, because we've got to tag in, right? We can't do it alone.
And we tell our parents, just to add to what you're saying, we tell our parents, your kids are like your 401k plan, right? So many of our parents, they don't have a 401k. And so if we invest now as a 401k, it has a payout later. We believe, understanding that Maria and I have military parents, we believe in this notion of, as a child, you're supposed to make certain that your parents are well taken care of. And so consequently, you have to be prepared to do so. That doesn't mean you can't just kind of look at education frivolously and not understand that it will have an impact in terms of you being able to fulfill that particular mission. So for our parents, when we talk about it in a way that meets them where they are and not necessarily just about education, because different people have different interfaces with education, it kind of resonates a little differently.
Yeah, and that's what I'm glad that you talked about that, because this is not just education. Hey, let's we run a STEAM high school STEAM-based program. I had to look up what the STEAM was, but STEAM, see if I can do it without looking at it. STEAM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics.
Absolutely.
And so it's not just the educational part, but even what you just said. Hey, you need to be taking care of your parents. There's a lot of value-driven messages, a lot of moral-driven messages that you're giving them. A really complete, package that you're giving the folks. So we've only got a couple minutes left. Unfortunately, we might have to have you back because we got so many things. I know that you just purchased a new 3,500 square foot facility to house your folks. That obviously is a huge accomplishment on your part. What would you like to leave the viewers with in terms of messages from you? I also want to reach out to them and say, if you want to volunteer, they're always looking for volunteers, but you just can't be anybody.
Right.
What would you, let's start with that question. What are you looking for in a volunteer? Somebody who's listening to this and going, man, that sounds really good. I like them. I think I might want to do something like this. What do you need to have them have and bring to you?
I think foundationally and fundamentally, it would just be the desire to want to help and to learn, right? Because a lot of people don't really understand the complexities of the problem that our young people and families are contending with. And so I would say being open to that, and then being willing to hear what the kids and what we're offering. So, and then from that, we just start building relationships. So it's as simple as, come visit our site, or sponsor. Here's how you sponsor a particular activity and project. And little by little, they begin to see, okay, this is different. This is like a village. This is not just an organization that's seeking to serve, quantifiable large numbers of students, but that we want to go deep with young people and families so that we can really impart real change. And people can be a part of that. Everyone plays a role in that.
And any final words, Tangee?
Yeah, about that 25 Newcastle. So this is a great story. I have to share it.
Okay.
So during COVID, that was our 25th year of service, right? And so one of the things as a part of our 5-year strategic plan that ends in 2021 is that we wanted to be able to acquire a space that we can have a locus of control of our own destiny. So when one of our community partners called us about a property that was bequeathed to them and said, hey, this opportunity is coming about, I want to give you all first right of refusal. We were like, universe, is that you? Like, are you calling? And so what's so crazy about the situation is, again, we've thought about it, we vetted it over with our board, and we were like, okay, can we do it? Because we didn't get an opportunity to authentically celebrate our 25th anniversary given COVID. Yeah. So now we're approaching our 26th year of service, and so we're like, okay, this could be like a 25 plus one being the house. And the address of the house, of the place, that is actually a commercial real estate property, is 25 Newcastle, as in 25 new house, which is a part of our 5-year plan that ends in 2021.
Oh, very cool.
And we were thinking, it's the universe.
It's all aligned.
It's all lining up. And so when this opportunity came about, this particular real estate is 2 clicks away from one of the primary communities that we support, the cluster feeder pattern. The high school is around the corner. The kids can walk to us in a matter of minutes. Now we have to raise the dollars to retrofit the space because we want the space to speak youth. We wanted to speak innovation. We wanted to have all of these nice little pieces of equipment so our kids can express their own creativity and understand that STEAM has so many different functionalities. Everyone can find their space in there, no matter if you're the top student, top of your class, or you're the student that's more hands-on. There's a place for you within the STEAM fields. So we're so excited about this and this being a part of our 25+1 celebration, to be able to have this parcel at this key time in our development. So yeah.
And we're fundraising for that.
Yes.
So we're looking for people who are willing to support and sponsor that. So
If you are a parent in a child that this organization serves and you want to get them in the program, or if you are wanting to be a volunteer, or if you just want to support this organization with your dollars, Maria, how can they reach you?
So they can go to our website, which is raisingexpectations.org, or contact us at 678-768-4932.
Ladies, it's been a pleasure reconnecting with you.
love
It's
it.
been too long. We need to do this
Yes,
again.
agreed.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And that's it for another edition of Big in Biz with DiViz. I want to thank you for watching. Until next time, stay cool, have good thoughts. See you.